Without the data, you're just another person with an opinion. Welcome back to another episode of our series 60 Lessons That We've Learned in 60 Years. Today we're going to talk about why we use a data-driven approach and kind of like what items we always use the data to make our decisions with. So like typically with us, you're never going to hear us advise a client and say, oh, well, I think let's look at the data, let's see what the data says, and let's make a decision.
So for instance, when we list a property, we're going to look at pricing and we're going to look at the data on the pricing. You agree?
Absolutely.
And that's crucial instead of, I think it's worth, like you said earlier. The other thing is the absorption rate. You know, is it more of a buyer's market or is it a seller's market?
Yeah, we're always looking at that because that's data that's what we call like a leading indicator. Mm-hmm. You know, sales does are a lagging indicator. So your leading indicators are like your market action index, right? So let's, for example, if the market action index is really high, let's say like a 75, that's a seller's market.
Yeah.
And so if your house sold for 500, market action index is 75, we're listing for 550.
I would say 550, yeah.
Now, if the market action index is 30, then if your neighbor sold for 500, we're listing your house for 499 because we understand that it's a more price sensitive market. And again, we only know that by looking at the data so that you can accurately advise the client with that.
And 30 is more of a neutral market, not a declining market.
Correct.
So we'd probably list right where the neighbor listed
exactly
before.
the price.
And we can do that by zip code, literally by zip code, by pricing. So it's really, we can hone in because each area is a little bit different.
Yeah, we pay a lot of money for all that
data. A lot. And we bring that to our listing appointment. So it's not something that we just tell you. We have all the data that we can sit there and show you. What about after we list? What about the data for the engagement?
Yeah, it's really important because you put a property to the market and obviously the number of showings and everything that's obviously going to be readily apparent, but you have all the data on the back end. Mm-hmm. What type of engagement are you getting? How many people are saving your listings on the different portals?
How many viewed the whole listing? How
long are they staying to view the listing? So if you have 10,000 people viewing and clicking on the link, spending a minute and a half on the website, and you have no showings, well, the data, we have that data to show that we're overpriced because either price or exposure. And the other data metric is always going to be like your marketing trends, seasonal, and I mean, like you just said about the rates.
Well, and data feedback that we get also. We get data feedback when when an agent shows a house, we get all that feedback. We're able to share that directly with the seller. Yeah. It's not censored like in the olden days. It was censored. Now we share it exactly with the seller, which hurts some feelings, but I mean, in reality, it's verbatim. It is what it is.
Yeah. So using the data, you're not just merely guessing on how to advise a client. It's looking at the data, let's make a decision, and move forward.
And move on.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks so much for joining us today. You can always email us or text us with questions. Next week, we're going to talk about some lessons that we've learned with Zillow. Be a really interesting lesson. See you next week.
If you're enjoying our videos and our topics, subscribe to our YouTube channel or like our Facebook page for our weekly videos.